She denies. Again, Katy Perry denies.
I didn't handle that marriage very well. I can see in retrospect absolutely what the problem was. In fact, I explained that in the book. What it was
Well, you said you were married to celebrity itself.
I worked it out.
So how so?
Well, because look, when you fall in love with someone, like, isn't it amazing to be in love? Isn't it so amazing? Well, imagine that sort of compounded with everyone else acting like it's important. It's like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. Plus, she's a really lovely... You know what there is about her? She has an innocence. She's a very beautiful person. Mm-hmm. She's also incredibly driven. And
that opening line is exactly why this interview exploded online. For years, Russell Brand and Katy Perry were packaged as one of pop culture's wildest pairings. Chaotic, glamorous, funny, and doomed in exactly the way celebrity marriages always seem to be. But now, with Brand facing criminal charges in the UK and giving a series of new interviews while awaiting trial, people are suddenly replaying the old relationship through a completely different lens. What used to sound like post-divorce regret now feels like the start of a much bigger public reckoning. And the reason this keeps pulling Katy Perry back into the conversation is simple. When Brand talks about what went wrong, he doesn't just sound nostalgic. He sounds like someone trying to explain how the image, the fame, and his own insecurity turned a huge public romance into something he says he mishandled from the inside.
Actually, I kind of don't mind that someone else takes some of the responsibility because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. He does seem like a handful.
Yeah, but handfuls are also really fun. There's never a dull moment.
Yeah. No, he is fantastic in so many ways, and he's also very calm. Like, he's a lot of different things.
Yes, he is a smorgasbord of things.
And that's why clips like the one you just saw matter. Back then, Katy Perry was still describing the marriage in light, playful terms. She called him a handful, but also fun. She said there was never a dull moment. That kind of clip is exactly how celebrity relationships survive in the public memory. Not as documents, not as evidence, but as mood. A laugh here, a couch interview there, a viral quote that makes the whole thing seem adorable. But the Brand story doesn't live in that old register anymore. After the 2023 investigation, reporting, the conversation stopped being about whether he and Katy were mismatched and started being about allegations, denials, and the criminal justice timeline now unfolding in public. That's the pivot your edit should keep hammering. The same figure who once lived in glossy entertainment coverage is now being discussed in court report language.
In Europe and in the United Kingdom, where I'm from, the age of consent is 16, and I did sleep with a 16-year-old when I was 30. But when I was 30, I was a very different person. I was a lot younger, and I was an immature 30-year-old. Consensual sex, actually, with a variety of people, when there is a strong power differential, as there is when you're a famous man that has the ability to attract women that I had at that time, I think involves exploitation. I think it is exploitative.
Brand's own 2023 response video is one of the most important clips in the entire story because it established the defense framing early. He said the relationships were always consensual and that he absolutely denied criminal wrongdoing. That line matters because everything that came after has unfolded against it. In April 2025, the CPS said it had authorized charges including rape, sexual assault, and indecent assault tied to reported non-recent offenses involving 4 women. Then in December 2025, prosecutors authorized 2 further charges tied to 2 additional women. By the time Reuters reported the trial schedule had shifted to October 2026, the case had become even bigger than the first wave of reporting. 7 total charges, 6 women, and not guilty pleas to all of them. So from an editing standpoint, this is the moment your video stops being celeb scandal recap and becomes public statements versus legal process.
Those charges. Well, the Metropolitan Police now says that it has authorised 2 extra charges against Mr. Brand, 1 extra count of rape and 1 extra charge of sexual assault. And this relates to another 2 alleged victims who have since come forward.
Now here's where the Meghan Kelly material changes the tone completely. That clip is not a confession to the charges he faces, and your script should never present it that way. But it is explosive because Brand himself discusses a past sexual relationship with a 16-year-old when he was 30, notes that the age of consent in the UK is 16, and then goes further by saying that sex under a strong power imbalance can be exploitative. That is why the interview generated such a reaction. Viewers weren't only hearing a denial anymore, they were hearing Brand describe parts of his past behavior in language that sounded morally damning, even while his legal position remained that he denies criminal allegations. That distinction, moral admission versus criminal liability, is the tension running underneath this entire story.
Here's me taking total responsibility for all the mistakes I made in that marriage. I wanted to grab her like a kind of, there, got it. You know, I felt like I was inadequate and not enough on my own. So I saw this big, glorious thing. And even though I knew her as a person as well, and as a person, she's a normal person. Like, everyone's a normal person. You've been around famous people. You know, who's famous when it comes to shower time, picking your nose?
And while the Katy Perry angle is not part of the criminal case, it keeps resurfacing because it gives audiences an emotional entry point. People remember the wedding, the divorce, the way those two were covered, and the image of Brand as a hyper-charismatic, out-of-control celebrity. That older public persona now collides with the formal legal record. According to the CPS, the initial charges covered reported non-recent offenses between 1999 and 2005 involving 4 women. The later CPS announcement added 1 further rape charge and 1 further sexual assault charge tied to 2009 and 2 additional women. Reuters then reported that the October 2026 trial would cover 7 charges relating to 6 women, and that Brand had pleaded not guilty to all of them. So the reason editors keep cutting back to Katy Perry is not because she is central to the case. It's because her name anchors the audience to the era when Brand was a mainstream star. That second Megyn Kelly clip is probably the closest thing this story has to a viral confession beat, but even that word needs to be handled carefully. What Brand actually does there is blame his own insecurity. Say he pushed to get married early and admit that he put Perry under unnecessary pressure and strain. In other words, he offers personal accountability for the collapse of the marriage. That is powerful in an edit because it sounds brutally honest. But in the larger scandal timeline, it also performs another function. It helps Brand present himself as someone now capable of acknowledging selfishness, immaturity, and exploitation in broad terms, while still contesting the criminal charges in court. That dual-track messaging is exactly why this interview cycle caught fire. It gives tabloids a dramatic soundbite, but it also gives documentary-style editors a bridge between the romance era, the denial era, and the trial era.
About after media reports back in 2023 had made these allegations, having spoken to a number of these alleged victims, the police then investigated and then in April this year decided that they would charge. What it means, though, is that Russell Brand will next appear at Westminster Magistrates Court in January of 2026.
So the cleanest way to end this video is not with a verdict, but with a collision. One timeline gave the world Russell Brand and Katy Perry as celebrity spectacle. The other timeline now gives the public charges, denials, court dates, and a trial scheduled for October 2026. That is why these old relationship clips suddenly feel different now. They aren't just nostalgia anymore, they're context. And for viewers, that's what makes this story impossible to watch as simple entertainment.